So let me ask both of you, in your personal experience, how has culture played a positive side of your growth? And then can you go back to where it may have had a negative impact or a toxic impact that you saw? And we'll start with those two. And then I want to ask the next part of that is, how'd you overcome that on the toxic side? Because this is about self-awareness. And I want our listeners to really not look at this as who they're thinking of, either their immediate leader or their team or their company. Think of it from a self-awareness. It's what you can control, right? I can control how I think, I can control how I act, I can control how I process things. I can't control the individual who's speaking to me of that. So this is about self-awareness and on that. So a positive impact and then a toxic one. Let's start with that. So Ilana, any thoughts on that from a positive and a toxic?
Sure. So when I joined the FirstService Residential family, it was through an acquisition back in 2016. And as you can imagine, an acquisition doesn't always sit very well with everyone. That brings about a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty. It can kind of put people on edge if they're complacent in their role. And that's something that I saw firsthand with some of the associates that I was working with. And they struggled with those changes and maybe the unknown a little bit. So that caused some waves for the rest of us in that same position of adjusting and learning new standard operating procedures and making sure that our customers were satisfied. So personally, I was actually very excited because I was focused on the opportunities that were going to be brought about by this acquisition. And you just had to kind of sit and wait and trust the process and know that I knew within myself that I had opportunity if I stayed aboard and, waited out maybe the temporary discomfort of adjusting to those changes. And I can't believe where I'm sitting now. I'm really happy in my marketing role. I've learned so much, and it's been a wonderful experience for me. For those individuals that were struggling a little bit, they were kind of meeting the opportunity with resistance, and I think that it caused a lot of struggle for them with overcoming any insecurities they may have been feeling, with dealing with those changes. And at times they would project it at other people. I was not out of their crosshairs, if that makes sense.
Right.
But you kind of shirk off the negativity because it's not yours to hold on to, and you focus on the positives and you just move forward.
Right, but that had a. Let me ask you though, because I remember this, right? But I have to say that couldn't have been easy. I mean,
No.
Looking back now on what the outcome was and how it's affected you in a positive light and your success is easy to say, hey, this is what you do. But in real time, when it happened, there had to be times where you were like, this is bullshit. I'm not sticking around for this. You're getting a toxic environment around you. Some people that may had some insecurities that were looking for you not to succeed. How did in the moment, if you can remember, how did you get through those, days, months, and in fact, it probably was about a year and a half it took for that to kind of change?
Yeah. I liked the challenge of being underestimated, and I was looking forward to the opportunity to kind of prove them wrong through my success. And so, that's a long game that you play, but in the end of all of it, it was definitely worth it. I think I had a few days where it was really a struggle to get through, and I would definitely say I was a little emotional about it because that kind of toxic environment really wears on you emotionally and spiritually. But when you can pivot and focus on all of the wonderful support that you have around you, because if you're in an environment with toxic individuals, then you're not the only one experiencing that toxicity.
Yeah.
So it's good to find support and people who will lift you up even when it feels like everyone's trying to bring you down. So I think if you lean into the people who you know support you, that's huge. Talk about it. Don't internalize some of the negativity that you're hearing, because it's more likely about the individual saying those things than about you. And just focus on doing your job, doing it well, and making an impact. And I think that's how I navigated that challenging time.
So what's interesting too, there's two paths that can go down, right? If you bailed earlier on this and didn't believe that it could turn around and that you had somewhat of a leap of faith, because leadership has to be a leap of faith in some areas. You would have missed out of this opportunity that you're in now and your promotions that you've received over the years after that. But there are times where a toxic situation is too toxic, or it has you've tried every angle, and that's when you also have to pivot to say, you know what, the environment I'm in isn't good. I need to move as well. So I want people to understand that there's no right or left. It's really about you giving it time and asking yourself honestly if you have really tried every avenue. What I find happens in most cases is you convince yourself that this isn't working, and then you become a fixed mindset and then want to bail. But see, that's not going to go away, because everywhere you go, there's going to be issues and challenges. And you can then start getting a learned behavior of, when things get heated, I'm out of here. In your personal life, in business, friendship, your neighbors, your children, whatever it is. So there is a time of where you really have to be true, honest with yourself and saying, I'm going to give this my all. But are you, or are you just checking a box to say, I'll give it, 3 weeks, and if it doesn't change, I'm out of here, and you're not doing anything to make it change? Versus, you know what, I'm going to push this through half the year, and I'm going to really make an effort not to let that bother me, an effort to not to let their negativity affect the way I am. And that's what you did. And again, I think you were very conscientious about it, but at the same time, you probably had the days, as you shared with us, of where I'm done. I can't take this, and you get through that. Walter, what about your experience in a toxic as well as a very positive impact a culture has had on you, and how did you react to those?
So, Michael, I think one thing Ilana said that really stuck out to me, and I guess one particular word she used was support. And support is something that associates want to give. They want that feeling of support, that a manager has their back, their coworkers have their back, and that support circle is constantly around them. People look for support circles when they're raising their family, and now they're looking for it more and more in terms of their employment. And that's something that we really have to consider. And I can think of a couple different opportunities. And in my life, I worked at a few different companies, and I've seen different aspects of support and the lack of support. And I can think of one opportunity I had where I was working somewhere, and everyone around me had the fear of failure around them, because they were thinking, if I failed or if I made a mistake, they were going to be terminated. And that's not the way you want to have people working for an organization. You can't have people afraid to fail, because, to be honest with you, failure isn't, just a mistake. Failure is an opportunity to grow and learn from your mistake and make you a better person and a better individual. Now, if there's a situation where the individual is making that same mistake over and over and over again, and you as a manager haven't stepped in and said, okay, this is a coachable moment, it's time for me to coach this person up, or this person is going to be coached out because of the mistakes. That, to me, is a supportive environment where one gives the opportunity for someone to learn on the job and to get better. And I was in that circumstance where, we weren't being coached as employees in a particular team. We weren't given that opportunity to make a mistake and then say, hey, let me sit down and show you what you did wrong and how you could have prevented that, or how to put yourself in a better space. it was the concept of, oh, you messed that up, I'm going to do it, I have to do it, that's the way it's going to be. And that's that's like the type of dictatorship that people don't want to be in terms of their workspace. And now the labor factor in the United States has gotten so crazy that people just don't have to put up with that. They will leave and find a better opportunity where there's a nurturing and supportive environment for them to grow and to develop themselves from a personal and professional outlook. And that's really the way that that's the one thing that I'll say made the most sense for me in terms of that organization, because I decided I had to move on from that circumstance and find a better fit organizationally for me.
Yeah, and I think, Walter, I'm thinking about years back with you and your role when so Walter also drives all the not only the technology and where the technology should go with a collaborative team, but also about maintaining the cost for hardware. And I remember speaking to an associate once, and this associate was we were going over some stuff, and they had their laptop open in front of them, and they were complaining about the speed and the issues and the challenges. And I said, what's up with your laptop? It looks kind of old. And they said, oh my God, it's ancient. I said, well, why don't you put in to get another one? And the person said, well, I did, but they won't allow me and say it's not in the budget. And I cringed. I cringed because there was a negative and a positive also in this. The negative was that that's what was communicated to this individual by our teams and the people involved. And to them, what does it feel like? I'm not important enough. I'm not higher up in the chain to get one. It doesn't matter. Deal with it. The positive was the individual felt comfortable sharing that with me as the president, and not just saying, hey, I'm not going to answer that, and I'm just going to bypass that. So I saw positive and negative. What I also saw was another positive from it. As you put, Walter, it was an opportunity for us to take a look as a company and an organization, and our leadership is to say, is that a really sufficient response? There was no rhyme or reason, education around it, or figuring out a better solution. And at that point, you and I had a conversation, our financial leader had a conversation, said, look, I get that at times we have to be mindful of the cost and the expense of certain things. But by any means of this, we should never be telling an associate who works their butt off and is trying to get the job accomplished that, in that sense, you're not important enough.